Hi, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my weekly photo chats. So today I'm going to talk about if you want a folding camera, if you wear eyeglasses like I do, and you want a folder that really will be a camera that doesn't cost much and you have a pocketable camera. Instead of the Leica, you could pick up these for $100. I've seen a few of them for that price. And this is a Leica 3C. This one isn't the same one that I first saw when I was a kid. So when my father was in the Army in 1955, he ended up picking up a Kodak Retina IIIC, which is a small C. This is the large C, and there were two versions of it. The large C has more frame lines in the lens, in the viewfinder, and they all use accessory lens elements. You could actually take off this front lens element and put on other lenses. But then the thing didn't close up, then you had to set focus on one, then you had to move it to the other, and it was very cumbersome. But we never had those. I just remember picking up this thing when I was a kid, and there's a whole bunch of numbers on it, and there's apertures, there's EV values, there's shutter speeds, and there's focus, there's distance, there's depth of field charts. That's a lot of numbers for a kid who doesn't know anything about photography. And I remember sitting in my bed looking at all those numbers and trying to figure them out, and it was challenging. I've since picked up some retinas if they've come my way, and this one is a large C. I'll show you some tricks about it. It has to be at infinity for you to close it. If it's not at infinity, it won't close. Kodak worked with Germany to make these, so these are German made. They're beautifully handcrafted. Oh, no, I'm not sure if they're handcrafted. They probably were. Leicas were handcrafted back then, so these are probably handcrafted. But they're wonderfully well constructed, highly precision. It's got a Schneider 50 millimeter f2.0 lens, so it's got a fast lens on it. Some of the retinas you'll see have 2.8 lenses. I like the f2 lens, obviously, because you can have a really fast lens and a really small body. And the beauty of the 3C with the capital C is I can see the whole 50 millimeter frame, and it's got a rangefinder for focus, but I can see the whole frame with glasses on. Whereas the 3C with the small C, it's a much smaller viewfinder. It doesn't have frame lines that vary. It just has the 50 millimeter lines, but it's smaller and it's a little bit more squinty. So this is a sweet find if you get a small camera you can fit in your pocket, 35 millimeter, and I would say the lens is comparable to a Leica lens. It's comparable. It's a Schneider German-made lens. It's fast. It's got a leaf shutter, so it's very, very quiet. It's there's very little motion. There's no mirror slap like an SLR, so you can shoot at a 15th of a second if you're shooting something that's not moving, or an eighth of a second if you're careful and hold your breath. There is one little trick about these. There's a little button on the back of here that has an arrow that says move it to the right, and you have to push this top button in while you press this other button to the right. So you have to push one and move the other to the right if it counts down to 0. Because the way the camera worked was they didn't want you to wreck your film by pulling it off the spool. And it has a unusual bottom wind, so you would take a picture and then you would wind the bottom. And there's film in it. It's on number 20, so I can't fire it. But the idea is you could shoot advance, but if you got down to 0, it no longer would shoot and it would no longer advance once you advanced. So a lot of times you'll see these at sales and they appear broken because they won't shoot and they won't fire and they won't advance. But now you know there's a secret. If you push this little knob to the right, like it has an arrow telling you to, while you push this little button next to the film counter, it will move it off of the 0. So like you're resetting the frame counter for a new roll of film, and then it'll work perfectly. And I've seen many of these show up where people are like, it's broken or I don't think it works. but it does work. It has a defeat mechanism in it to prevent pulling your film off the spool that people don't know about, because who knows how a 1950s camera works. Great small pocketable camera. It's one of my favorite. A lot of times when I don't want to take a camera over my shoulder, I just want to take a different camera, and this one reminds me of growing up because my father had the 3C. It's a great little pocketable camera, and again, you can find them for not too much money. There was a time when the large C was going for more, and they were like kind of desirable, and I think they were a few $100s. But now I think you can find these for $100, and it feels like it's well made. It feels like quality. They come with a leather case that is felt lined and beautiful, and I kind of like it without a case because it just seems simpler. And you'll probably buy it with a case because they come with a case. It has lugs for a strap, but since I usually put it in my pocket, I don't put a strap on it. All right, that's today's photography talk. The camera that got me started and inspired me. Hey, I'd be interested to hear what your first camera was. The first one that you looked at the numbers and got confused and tried to work through and figure out, what in the world do all these numbers mean? All right, that's today's photography talk. I welcome your comments. If you can subscribe, please do. If you can support with a coffee or a brewski, that would be great. Please hit the Patreon, and I'll be back next week. We'll talk photography. As always, here's the good light.